you know, 12, 13 years old, I'm thinking to myself, wow, that sucks, but like I'll never go to South Africa. I never thought South Africa would be in my, a future like that. But being able to be married to a South African woman and being educated on the gender violence that's going on, it's crazy. I know in the States, they say the statistics is one out of every three women was either molested, raped, or sexually assaulted. So, as far as that, like, I mean, and that's women all the way around. That's not just black women. Um, I will say this: the men in my family has did a great job as far as protecting their daughters and showing them the way and everything. A great example I can use: my oldest brother. Um, the stuff he did with his daughter, like, man, it was like he was a trailblazer. She was really heavy into sports, so he would be there every practice, picking her up, try to make it to every game. And if he saw to where she was around the wrong crowd when he pulled up, it was something he said, and he definitely sheltered her. But when he let her loose, as far as he cut the chain. She was in college. She knew what right looked like. She knew that, okay, these guys are not who you want to be around, this and that. And if you drink, be responsible. So it's men that are coming up that are doing better. I will say that, as far as that I've been around, and that's what we really need as far as men being there too. But like Randy said, when we're not protected either. So hopefully, we can just find a solution and definitely help each other. So
I think that that ultimately the answer to this question is stronger communities. Because, like you said, like before, your neighbor used to have the access to be able to say something when they saw your child was not doing the right thing. And I don't know about you guys, but the colored community used to be really tight knit. It was a result of apartheid, but it was incredibly tight knit. So, my cousin once said to me when I had my first job and I worked in an industrial area, and I'd say to him, "Oh my goodness, I don't feel safe." And he said to me, "You're safer in the township than you are in any suburb. Just remember that." And like a township here in South Africa is like a ghetto. And so, like, I always held that with me. So, like, if I'm in a township, because I'm a township girl, like, I know I'm safe because I know my way around. I know how to carry myself and that kind of thing. But that dynamic's changed now. I won't teach my daughter that same thing because you're not safe in a township anymore because that violence has turned inward. So, where before it used to face outward in order to protect the community inside, it was an insulation. Now it's turned inward. I'm not sure what is causing it. I think that drugs are ramping up in South Africa in a way that it hadn't before. This is like a new problem for us. And so we're seeing that effect, that it has on the minds of young people, and also how difficult it is for their parents and their family to actually navigate that. Like, how do you navigate an addicted person, recovery, and all of that, and the associated evils that comes with how they act as a result of being on some of the stuff. And so, but I think that that sense of community used to create that protection. So if you were black and you were in a black community, just by virtue of being black, you were fine. Same with colored people. But now, like, are our communities safe? Is it a safe space anymore? And here in South Africa, just like the the fact that like so many of us young people are moving out of townships and into suburban areas, it's like we want to move away now from that because we don't feel safe there anymore. And then you don't create the same kind of community. So I think that's also changed. And I think that's where men, women, and children can be protected, is if we actually form those clusters that we used to have. But obviously the dynamic changes because you don't live where you grew up anymore.
okay.
just want to touch on the issue of the drugs. And I know it's straying away from it, but I'm going to bring it back to the core of this conversation. I feel like drugs is such a, oh, it's like a rock and a hard place, man, because our communities are riddled with drugs. But why are they so riddled with drugs? And for me, it's colored children or black children who have been so emotionally and physically violated by their families and their community, even eventually, that they turned away and into drug abuse. And as a result, using that as their escape. And it's that issue of safety. I didn't feel safe enough with my family and with my people, but drugs makes me feel safe. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And
It's a way to cope.
that's a heavy one though.
Yeah, yeah.
It
Drug
is,
is
but
a
it also, sorry, Randy.
no, no. I was just saying it's their way of coping. They turn to drugs.
Yeah,
Oh,
but it also adds another layer of unprotection, right? Because now it's your drug addicted family member that's breaking into your house. It's your drug addicted family member that's stealing from you. It adds another layer of unprotection.
I always wonder, like, where did this all start? You know, at what point did Black women start feeling unprotected, or has it always been this way, going back to the beginning of time? And I look at a lot of countries and places that are predominantly Black, and it's not just Black America. You got to look at countries like Haiti, places in Africa where Blacks have been exploited for centuries by Europeans. And, uh, you know, I don't know, I always wondered, why are we the most, out of all races, why are we the most exploited, right? Is it that we don't stand up for ourselves? Um, like how did we get here? I always wondered that, because you see the Chinese community, they have control over their country, and the things that they do. They didn't allow the Europeans and the British to come in and take over. You see the Japanese, Koreans, you see other countries, right? But when it comes to Black countries, it's like we allow things to happen that most other races would not allow. And so I think that plays a big part in it as well.
You know, while Randy's talking, I'm thinking of something. Are you done, Randy? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah. Oh, yeah.
My mind is running away with me tonight. I wanna. Can I be revolutionary?
Run it. Go ahead.
Will you allow the historian in me to shine bright like a diamond? Um, you know what? My mind just snapped to slavery. And the only reason this makes so much sense to me is because if I think about where our point of safety broke, that would make sense. That blip in what the universe was doing at that point was such an emotional break for Black people as a whole, because it involved so many injustices. Of course, we're going to have that factory set into our DNA. And I think it definitely does have its traces back, to some extent at least, because like Randy was saying, why do other races not allow it, but we still allow it? And you think about it, like, for such a long time, over such an extended period, why? Why can't we just snap out of it? Why can't we just? But then it makes sense to me. Experiencing such a trauma must have really um, sewn into our fibers, like, um, expect this, accept the least. Am I making sense?
Yeah,
I just
definitely.
ran off with an idea over there. My sister backed me up.
Actually,
No, I'll back
you're
you
in the
up.
thing.
I'll back
You're
you
in the
up.
thing. Because
Be-
because what happened was is that we went from slavery, right? So either if our mothers were taken, they were violated and taken violently from their children.
Yeah.
If our fathers were taken, our mothers were left to fend for the children and for themselves, often in a patriarchy, because Africa, the whole of Africa, it's a patriarchy. Okay. So you don't know if the king or if whatever rulership, like ruling situation was going on at the time, you don't know, because in Africa, like, a woman only has access through her husband, through her father, and through her brother. And I mean, a lot of that. I was speaking to my neighbor. She's from the DRC. And I mean, she literally had to escape in the middle of a night, like 30 years ago, this happened. This is recent. In the middle of a night, because her husband, who she loved, died. And she just had twin babies. And his family of brothers and
Oh,
father
shucks, she's
would
cutting
not
off.
let her, hey? Would not let her take the kids without their permission. So she had to literally leave in the middle of the night to come to South Africa as a safe haven. That is thing number one. And then we forget that after slavery, it's not well documented, but how many black men were sent to fight European wars. They were sent to fight on the front lines, and they were often not the heroes of the story. You don't hear about the guy that assisted in the heart surgery that happened here in South Africa, that he was a black man. You
Yeah.
don't hear about our actual heroes in our communities. They just disappeared silently. And that broke us, because at the end of the day, it's like the diminishing that happens in terms of this narrative of nothingness, that we are not important and that we are sort of just like this race of nothing. It perpetuates, but not over one generation. It's multiple generations. That will weave itself into the DNA, because PTSD is something that actually, like depression, is carried in the DNA. And now, if you keep on building on the trauma and you can't ever recover from the trauma as a generation and as a culture, what must happen?
I will
Yeah.
say this. I know growing up, a lot of the movies that American movies that would talk about slavery, whether it was made 30 years ago, whether it's made 2 years ago, it would always be scenes where the black woman is getting violated, whether her husband was right there or not. And that, even as a child, that bothered me, knowing that your wife, this is your wife, you're going to let this overseer come, snatch her, bring her in the house, and have his way with her, and there's nothing you can say. So it's a part of me for a long time that would say black women have been unprotected for a long time, and it was, to a certain degree. At one point, black men were helpless to a certain degree. So I think that's where it all started from, and I mean, I just pray and hope we can definitely break that cycle. With this generation that's coming in.